So apparently the Cybertruck has a stop zone, and I might know why. It's got something to do with the accelerator pedal. So let me show you something interesting about my Cybertruck. Is that pedal looks different, right? Because it's missing this. So a couple days ago I'm driving, and let me see if I can get a good view here. I'm driving and this goes here. As I'm driving, this slid up and wedged itself just like that. Right now it's not clipped on, so it's kind of hard to see, but this wedged itself right there. And as you can see, based on the design of the floorboard, this sliding up, and the way this was still hooked onto the pedal, it held the accelerator down 100% at full throttle. Now, I was luckily...
How do I roll the window down?
The switch is in the middle.
Why are they in the middle?
Well, think about it. It's a Bronco. The doors come off. So if the doors are off and you want to roll the window up, how are you going to do that with the doors up?
Technology has been brainwashing you for years, making you believe that newer cars are always better than older ones. But more and more car owners are finding out the opposite. Something as simple as adjusting a mirror may now take several steps on a screen. One car may work perfectly fine today, then fail to recognize the key tomorrow, and in more serious cases, the car may keep accelerating even after the driver takes their foot off the pedal. In the previous two videos, I talked about durability engine problems, transmission issues, and new cars that had to go back to the dealership again and again. This time, we are going to look at an issue that is much closer to the driver, how new cars are being designed, and why the more advanced they become, the harder they can sometimes be to live with. This is not just about whether you prefer buttons or screens. It affects how you drive, how your family members use the car, and how much you can still trust the vehicle to do what you ask it to do. Today, I will show you 5 signs that new car design is moving away from what drivers actually need, along with what you should check before spending your money. Watch this now to avoid problems that may not show up until after the car is already sitting in your driveway. Technology is taking away intuitive design and direct control. Did you know that in some new cars, adjusting the side mirrors requires the driver to open the screen, go into the vehicle settings, find the driver adjustment section, and then go back to using the controls on the steering wheel? That is the first issue we need to talk about today. Technology is turning basic actions into procedures that car owners have to memorize. And this man lost his patience just because he wanted a clear view behind his own car. He is sitting inside a Volvo X90. He is not looking for a special driving mode, and he is not setting up a feature he will only use a few times a year. He just wants to adjust the mirrors. But there is no separate mirror control on the door. He has to open the settings, go into the vehicle settings, select the driver adjustment section, and then use the steering wheel to finish the job. According to him, adjusting the steering wheel works the same way. I understand why automakers like putting so many functions on one screen. The cabin looks cleaner, there are fewer buttons, and it is easier to create a modern feel. But clean for the designer does not always mean simple for the person using it. The mirror adjustment function has not disappeared. The task has not disappeared either. It has just been moved into the driver's head. Now the driver has to remember which menu to open, which section to choose, and what step comes next. My neighbor's son once asked me where the mirror adjustment button was in a new car. In my 2006 Honda Accord, I just pointed to the door. In a new car, I would have to explain an entire process. And think about your own family, an older relative borrowing the car, a friend who just changed the seat position, or anyone who needs to quickly adjust the view before backing out of a parking space. Should they have to learn the company's interface before they can clearly see what is behind them? Good design should not make people feel like they just passed a test simply because they found a basic function. But the problem does not stop with the screen, it also shows up right under the driver's hands. In this Volkswagen, the control areas are located right on the steering wheel, but they do not have the clear physical boundaries of traditional buttons. Your hand cannot easily tell which function it is touching until the car responds. A steering wheel is not a phone. Drivers do not hold it so they can look at an interface. They hold it while their eyes need to stay on the road. A physical button tells you a lot before you press it: its shape, location, raised surface, and how it moves when pressed. When those signals disappear, your eyes have to take over work that your hands used to handle. Looking down may only take a moment, but every time a driver has to check whether they touch the right control, their attention moves away from the place that matters most. If this kind of design keeps spreading, are we trading the driver's focus for the sake of minimalism? This older Mercedes offers a completely different answer. The car is not short on comfort features. It has heated seats, cooled seats, position memory, and even the ability to adjust the passenger seat. But every function has a fixed location that the hand can remember. The person filming closes his eyes only to demonstrate the physical feedback, not to suggest that anyone should drive that way. The difference is not that the Volvo has technology and the Mercedes does not. Both cars have plenty of features. One forces the driver to search, the other lets the hand find what it needs on its own. I am not against screens, but a function does not become better just because it gets moved into software. When drivers have to look more, remember more, and wait longer to do something they already knew how to do, the thing being simplified probably is not their experience. It is only the manufacturer's dashboard, and if a few buttons already reveal that gap, the rest of the cabin is even more concerning, because there it is not just the driver's hands that have to adapt to the car. Their posture, reach, and entire body are also being forced to change. Design is moving farther away from real drivers. The second issue is something I think has fooled you too: a cabin that looks extremely modern. A big screen, polished graphics, and a new layout can make the car seem better the moment you get inside. But after you buy it, what decides whether you still like it is the seat, the armrest, the legroom, and the way your family uses the car every day. This man has owned both the Mustang S550 and the S650. He heard plenty of criticism that the newer generation was heavier, more expensive, and less attractive than the previous one. But he still chose the newer generation because for him, the S650 interior was clearly better, and the added technology was worth the trade-off. He said the old screen looked like a calculator while the new one looked like an iPad. I understand that feeling. When you pay more for a new car, you want to immediately see why you paid extra. You want the new car to actually feel different, but do not let the screen make the decision for you. After a few weeks, you will stop admiring it every time you open the door. What you will notice more is whether the seat supports your back, whether your elbow has a comfortable place to rest, whether your knees feel comfortable, and whether your family can sit comfortably. I would not judge a cabin from one quick test drive. I would adjust the seat the way I would for a long trip, get in and out, turn around to look behind me, and try every seating position. A small detail in the showroom can turn into the same irritation over and over for years. For someone with back pain, stiff shoulders, weak knees, or aging parents, they often drive around. This is no longer about whether the cabin looks good or bad. A seat cushion without enough support can turn a 2-hour trip into something you dread. The car is still new, but your body already wants to get out. But not every control placed somewhere different is a bad design. This Bronco made me look at the issue more fairly. The person sitting inside wanted to roll down the window but could not find the switch on the door. The controls were located in the middle of the cabin, and at first, that placement seemed very confusing. Late at K, the reason is very simple. The Bronco doors can be removed. If the switches were mounted on the doors, like they are in many other cars, the controls would be removed along with them. Ford placed them in the middle so drivers could still operate the windows when the doors were no longer attached to the vehicle. This is the kind of change I can accept. The driver has to learn a new location, but in return, they get a clear benefit. The Bronco is designed so the doors can be removed, and the switch placement allows the vehicle to keep working properly when the owner does that. I do not need every button to stay in the same old place. I just need the reason for the change to benefit the person using the car. When you have to change a habit, make sure you get something in return. Easier use, more comfort, better safety, or a design that better fits how the vehicle is meant to be used. Before you sign the paperwork, spend a few minutes actually living with the cabin. Do not just look at it. Sit down, get out, turn around, put your bag somewhere, try the back seat, and imagine a long trip. The salesperson will only be next to you for a few hours. The inconvenience may stay with you for years. And remember, a sensible design is still not enough. The car also has to be built carefully. Because in the next section, we are going to meet new car owners who found stitching, coming apart plastic panels separating paint damage, and parts wearing out much sooner than they expected. At that point, a beautiful screen or a smart layout will not save you. You will no longer be asking how modern the car is. You will be asking why a product that just left the dealership already has you making phone calls, taking pictures, and arguing with people. Automakers are adding features faster than they can control quality. A new car with an accelerator pedal that does not come back up on its own cannot be called a minor issue. This is the third problem I want to talk to you about: how quickly automakers are adding new features and whether quality control is really keeping up. This man was still able to stop the car with the brakes, but every time he lifted his foot off the brake, the car started accelerating again. He found that a part had gotten stuck under the trim above it, keeping the pedal from returning to its normal position. I would not call that a lucky ending. I only see a driver who handled a situation correctly when the car should never have put him in that situation in the first place. Honestly, when I used to hear about quality control problems, I usually thought about uneven paint, loose plastic, or rattling noises inside the cabin. Those things are frustrating, but you can call the dealership and schedule an appointment. This situation did not give the driver that kind of time When you take your foot off the accelerator, the car is supposed to slow down. That is a basic response every driver depends on. If the car still wants to surge forward, the driver only has a few seconds to understand what is happening and react correctly right then. Now replace the man in the video with your husband or wife. Your children or grandchildren are sitting in the back. The car is merging onto the highway, approaching a line of stopped traffic or backing out of a crowded parking space. Would they realize they need to keep holding the brake, or would they panic and make the wrong move? That is what makes me the most angry. A family buys a new car because they want to reduce risk. They do not buy it hoping the person behind the wheel will stay calm enough to save everyone when a basic part gets stuck while the car is moving at high speed. Buyers have almost no way to find this kind of problem on their own before taking delivery. You can inspect the paint tests, the air conditioning, and check the things you can easily see, but you cannot remove the parts around your feet and repeat the entire inspection yourself. And you should not have to. When you pay for a new car, you're also paying for the trust that basic parts were installed correctly, secured properly, and inspected before the vehicle was delivered. That responsibility cannot be pushed onto the customer. When a problem only appears after the car is already on the road, the driver becomes the last line of protection for the entire family. And this issue is not just about one piece of trim. New cars have more screens, sensors, software cameras, and connected systems. Every new feature also creates more parts that have to be installed, more situations that have to be tested, and more chances for something to work incorrectly. I am not using one video to say that every new car has problems, but it is enough to raise a serious question. As automakers keep creating new models and adding more features, do they still have enough time to carefully check the basics? When a problem gets missed, why might the first person to discover it be someone driving their own family? To me, this is the part that is truly concerning. The more complicated cars become, the harder it is for buyers to know how thoroughly everything inside has been tested. They have to trust more while having less ability to verify anything themselves. One incident can destroy that trust. If this happened to me, I would demand a thorough inspection from the dealership and keep every piece of paperwork. I would not let a family member drive the car until I had a clear answer. But the next part is even harder. You do not know what the car will do next. Drivers can no longer predict what the car will do. And the fourth issue that keeps me from feeling comfortable with many new cars is that drivers can no longer predict how the car will respond. You press park, but the car does not go into park. Your phone unlocks the door in the morning, but the car does not recognize it that afternoon. A setting that was still there yesterday suddenly goes back to the default today. Each problem may only last a few minutes, but it makes you start checking the car instead of trusting it. That is when your peace of mind starts disappearing a little more every day. You can learn where an oddly placed button is. You can memorize a new procedure, but nobody can learn a rule that keeps changing. Today the car works normally. Tomorrow it puts several warnings in front of you at the same time. You do not know whether it is a real problem, a temporary glitch, or a system that just stepped in on its own. The hardest part is that the car does not clearly tell you what to do next. Can you keep driving? Do you need to pull over? Should you call roadside assistance? Or do you just need to restart it? While you are trying to find the answer, you start changing the way you use the car. You press park one more time just to make sure. You pull the door handle, then look back to check whether the car actually locked. Before walking away, you check the instrument panel one more time. Things that used to happen naturally now become a checklist you have to go through every day. I used to think it was just because I was not familiar with new technology yet. I had driven my old Honda Accord for so long that sometimes I blame myself for being slow to adjust. But when a feature works today and then does not work tomorrow, that is no longer about learning how to use it. When the same action produces two different results, the driver cannot tell whether the problem is with them or with the car they are driving. My Accord does not have a digital key remote updates or a lot of automated systems. It is not perfect either, but when I turn the key shift into gear and lock the doors, its response is pretty predictable from one day to the next. New cars have a lot of useful features. They can save time and make some trips more comfortable. I just need those features to work consistently so I do not have to start guessing all over again the next time. This also affects your family. You may know how to restart the screen or use the backup key, but your husband, wife, aging parents, or child who just started driving may have no idea where to begin when the car starts acting strangely in the middle of a trip. The problem could happen in a hospital parking lot, at the airport, outside a grocery store, or somewhere with almost no cell service. Your family member needs to get home, but the car will not unlock, or they do not know which warning is serious and needs immediate attention. A family car should be easy enough to understand that someone else can use it without calling the owner every time something unusual happens. When you have to give instructions every time you hand over the keys, convenience starts turning into a burden. Some automated systems still have clear value. A car that automatically goes into park when the door opens can keep it from rolling away. Sensors can detect obstacles. Software updates can fix problems. But the driver needs to understand what the system just did. When my car acts strangely, I would write down the time and record the screen once the vehicle was safely stopped, but When you get to the dealership, the car works normally again. The technician cannot find the problem. From that point on, you have to start collecting evidence for the next time it happens. Car owners have to become problem investigators. The fifth and final issue I have noticed from the owner's side begins when drivers have to write down the time record the screen and wait for the car to fail one more time, just so they have evidence to bring to the dealership. The car may show an error on the road, refuse to go into park, or behave strangely right in front of you, but once it gets to the service department, everything is normal again. The warning is gone. The technician takes it for a test drive and finds nothing. You're told to take the car home, keep driving it, and come back if the problem happens again. From that point on, every trip comes with one more responsibility, keeping your phone somewhere easy to reach. You start recording the date-time conditions and the exact warning that appeared on the screen. Did the problem happen right after the car started or after it had been running for a while? Did it disappear after the car was turned off? If it happened to my car once, I would write it down. By the second time, I would want clear photos, video, and timestamps. I would not want the conversation with the dealership to turn into a debate over whether my memory was accurate. But that work also changes the way you drive. Part of your mind is always waiting for the warning sound or the moment the car reacts incorrectly so you can record it in time. You are no longer just using the car. You are waiting for it to prove that the problem really exists. The hardest part is when the problem lasts just long enough to scare you, then disappears before the technician can see it. The dealership does not have enough information to replace a part. You have to take the car home again without knowing whether the problem will come back. At that point, do you keep letting your husband, wife, or child drive that car, or do you leave it at home even though your family still needs it for work, medical appointments, and caring for relatives? The warning is gone, but the anxiety is still sitting beside you on the next trip. Then the car starts taking time away from the entire family. You have to rearrange work schedules, ask someone for a ride, wait for a loaner car, call back for updates, and tell the same story to several different people. For a family with only one car, a problem with no identified cause can disrupt an entire week. Honestly, I do not mind taking a car in for inspection once. What wears me down is the second time, the third time, and still having to begin with the same sentence. It does not happen often, but when it does, it is very concerning. I understand that a service department cannot repair a car based only on guesses, but the owner also cannot recreate a dangerous problem just to prove it happened. If it were me, I would keep every service record warning and count of how many times the car went back. Could not reproduce the problem should not be the final answer. And then I have to ask, who is this car really serving more? When automakers' priorities drift away from what drivers actually need. But if I stop at saying automakers are focusing on the wrong things, this still does not help you very much. You still need a car to get to work, take family members to medical appointments, drive your children and grandchildren around, and live with it for many years. So the last thing I want to do is tell you to avoid new cars. I want to give you a simple way to figure out which car truly works for you. First, do not start with the big screen, the number of driving modes, or the list of features. Start with your life. How far do you usually drive? Who will use the car? Can older family members get in and out easily? Which features will actually be used every week? If a feature does not solve a clear need, I would not let it decide how much money I spend. Next, test the exact vehicle you plan to buy, not just a display model with the same name. Adjust the seat, open the doors, shift into park, connect your phone, use the camera, and repeat those actions several times. Then let your husband, wife, or another family member do everything without any instructions. If they have to keep asking questions, it is no longer something you will simply get used to. It could become a problem every time your family uses the car. I would also ask the salesperson one very specific question. If the screen app or digital key stops working, what other way do I have to use the important functions? The answer needs to be clear before you sign the paperwork, not after your whole family gets stranded in a parking lot. If a car has a long list of features but no simple backup method, I would see that as a risk, not a luxury. Finally, do not pay more just because one model year is newer. Look at the exact trim, the exact system, and what owners who have lived with the vehicle for a long time are saying. Sometimes a version with fewer features but better reliability will fit your family better than the model with the most technology. To me, a good car does not need to surprise me every day. It just needs to do the right job the right way for long enough that I can trust my family with it. Drivers are not asking the auto industry to stop moving forward. They just want it to move in the right direction, closer to the way they actually live. The truth is, new cars look better, move faster, and come with more technology. But if they are harder to use, harder to predict, and keep going back to the dealership, is that really progress? Before buying your next car, do not just look at the technology or the new design. Ask whether it actually fits your life, because the salesperson will tell you how amazing the car is. Now, I want to hear your answer. Do you still believe new cars are more reliable than old ones? Share your thoughts in the comments, especially if you are a mechanic or if you bought a new car and had to take it back to the dealership soon afterward. Subscribe to the channel because the next video will continue exposing the problems that only show up after a car leaves the showroom.